Greetings, everyone. Welcome back to The Elderly Way, a channel dedicated to sharing health and lifestyle knowledge specifically for middle-aged and older adults. In the previous episode, we looked at common foods like potatoes, honey, and tomatoes, items that may seem safe to store in the fridge, but in reality can undergo unfavorable biological reactions if stored improperly. Today is part 2, continuing that topic. We'll explore 6 more foods, ranging from fruits to spices, that are also commonly stored incorrectly in the refrigerator. Some of them may surprise you as they're everyday staples, and many people assume the colder the better. However, for older adults, proper food storage isn't just about keeping things fresh. It's also about preserving nutritional value, supporting digestion, and minimizing the risks of inflammation, fatigue, or metabolic issues that can arise when food has chemically changed. In this video, you'll get clear scientific explanations on why these foods shouldn't be refrigerated for long periods, specific storage guidance, ideal temperatures, wrapping techniques, and proper placement, practical alternatives if you live in a hot climate or need long-term storage options. Our information is based on sources from the WHO, FDA, USDA, and international scientific research, not on guesswork or unverified folk traditions. Before we begin, feel free to share in the comments. How do you usually store your food? Are there any items in your fridge that seem to have lost quality, but you're not sure why? And if you find this content helpful, hit subscribe to keep following the elderly way on the journey toward healthier, more informed, and more proactive living every day. Now, let's take a look at the first food item in part 2. Number 6. Avocados. Why you shouldn't refrigerate them before they ripen. Avocados are highly recommended for middle-aged and older adults due to their high content of monounsaturated fats, fiber, vitamin E, folate, and antioxidants like lutein and beta-sitosterol. These nutrients support heart health, help regulate cholesterol, maintain brain function, and promote good vision. However, to get the most nutritional value out of avocados, proper storage is crucial. And this is something many people get wrong, especially the common habit of putting avocados straight into the refrigerator right after buying them, even when they're still unripe. According to the UC Davis Post-Harvest Center, avocados are climacteric fruits, meaning they continue to ripen after harvest through enzyme activity and natural ethylene production. When kept at room temperature, about 65-75 degrees F or 18-24 degrees C, avocados ripen naturally, soften evenly, and develop their signature flavor. But if you refrigerate unripe avocados, typically below 41 degrees F or 5 degrees C, this process is disrupted. The enzymes responsible for converting starch and fatty acids don't function well at low temperatures, which prevents the fruit from ripening properly. The consequences of premature refrigeration go beyond uneven ripening. Research from UC Davis shows that unripe avocados stored in the fridge for 4 or 5 days are at risk of chilling injury. This damage shows up as rubbery or hard flesh, dark spots, bland taste, and a lack of the avocado's typical aroma. These changes are caused by cellular membrane damage and disruptions in the fruit's natural fat metabolism. Additionally, key volatile compounds that give ripe avocados their flavor, such as hexanol and 2-heptanone, are significantly reduced if the fruit is chilled before it reaches physiological ripeness. Storing avocados at the wrong time also affects your body's ability to absorb beneficial compounds. Some studies indicate that lutein and phytosterols in avocados can lose their bioactivity when the fruit's tissue structure is compromised by cold damage. This is especially important for older adults, who often face challenges absorbing antioxidants effectively. So, the rule for storing avocados is simple but must be followed correctly. Only refrigerate them after they're fully ripe, when the skin feels slightly soft, darkens in color, and gives slightly under gentle pressure. Once ripe, they can be stored in the fridge for another 2-3 days. If the avocado is already cut, wrap it tightly with plastic wrap. Keep the pit in place to reduce oxygen exposure, and if possible, brush a thin layer of lemon juice over the surface to slow oxidation. On the other hand, if the avocado is still firm, leave it at room temperature in a cool, dry place, away from direct sunlight. You can place it next to apples or bananas, fruits that release a lot of ethylene to speed up the ripening process. Once fully ripe, you can eat the avocado right away or refrigerate it for short-term storage. In short, avocados are a nutrient-rich food ideal for older adults, but to truly benefit from them, it's essential to understand how they ripen. Storing them at the right time helps preserve their flavor, texture, and health benefits, and avoids unnecessary waste caused by improper storage. Number 5. Bananas, don't refrigerate them before they're ripe. Bananas are a very popular fruit, high in energy, and especially suitable for older adults thanks to their easy digestibility and rich content of potassium, vitamin B6, vitamin C, and a moderate amount of fiber. In addition to supporting digestion and helping prevent constipation, a common issue among seniors, bananas may also help stabilize blood pressure and boost nervous system function. However, to maximize their nutritional value and maintain optimal taste and texture, proper storage is crucial. And this is where many people go wrong, particularly when refrigerating unripe bananas. Biologically, bananas are a type of climacteric fruit, meaning they continue to ripen after being harvested through natural enzyme activity and the production of ethylene gas. Ripening allows the starch in bananas to convert into simple sugars, glucose and fructose, making them softer, more fragrant, and easier to digest. However, according to research from the UC Davis Post-Harvest Center, when green bananas are stored in cold conditions below 55 degrees F, 13 degrees C, the ripening process is halted, enzymes stop working, and the cellular membranes begin to break down. The result: the banana peel turns brown or dark, the fruit doesn't ripen evenly, and the flesh inside often tastes bitter or feels hard. Even if the peel eventually turns yellow due to environmental exposure, the inside won't develop the softness, sweetness, or aroma it would if it had ripened naturally at room temperature. Another key point: chilling injury from cold storage is irreversible. Even after removing the bananas from the fridge, the ripening process won't fully resume. This not only affects the eating experience, but can also reduce the levels of natural antioxidants like dopamine and catecholamines, compounds that help regulate blood pressure and neutralize harmful free radicals. For older adults who often have slower digestion and metabolism, ripe and soft bananas are the ideal choice, but only if they're stored and consumed at the right time. Unripe bananas that are refrigerated can be hard to digest, cause bloating, or be difficult to chew due to their unconverted structure. So, the golden rule for proper banana storage is this: only put bananas in the fridge after they're fully ripe. That is, when the peel has turned yellow with small brown specks and the fruit feels slightly soft to the touch. Chilling at this stage helps slow further ripening and extends their usability for 2-3 more days. However, be aware that the peel may darken or blacken due to oxidation in the cold, but the flesh inside will remain safe to eat and retain its flavor. On the other hand, if the bananas are still green, they should be kept at room temperature, around 68-75 degrees F or 20-24 degrees C, in a cool, dry place. You can place them near apples or tomatoes to speed up the ripening process, thanks to the natural ethylene those fruits emit. Avoid direct sunlight or overly warm spots, as that can cause uneven ripening or spoilage. In short, bananas are a simple but nutritionally rich food. For older adults, a properly ripened banana can be an ideal snack, helping maintain energy, support digestion, and keep blood pressure in check. But to get all those benefits, remember this: never put unripe bananas in the fridge. It's a small habit change that makes a big difference in the quality of your daily meals. Number 4. Apples, important notes on storing in the refrigerator. Apples are a staple in healthy diets and are especially recommended for middle-aged and older adults. They're rich in soluble fiber, mainly pectin, vitamin C, potassium, and powerful antioxidants like quercetin and catechol, compounds known to support heart health, help manage blood sugar, and reduce inflammation. While it's common to store apples in the fridge, there are key considerations to ensure their quality isn't compromised and to avoid negatively affecting other stored foods. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA, and the UC Davis Post-Harvest Research Center, apples are considered high ethylene producers. Ethylene is a natural plant hormone that speeds up the ripening process, but in an enclosed space like a refrigerator, high concentrations of this gas can damage ethylene-sensitive vegetables like leafy greens, carrots, cucumbers, or broccoli. So if apples are not stored properly, keeping them in the same compartment with these vegetables can lead to unwanted spoilage. Additionally, even in cold conditions, apples continue to breathe, meaning they still undergo respiration, though at a slower rate. This process can gradually reduce their crispness, dull their flavor, and decrease vitamin C content over time. Especially with ripe apples, storing them in the fridge for too long, over 4 weeks, can cause the flesh to soften, lose crunchiness, and even develop dark internal spots, known as internal browning, a common physiological disorder caused by excessively low or fluctuating temperatures. A UC Davis study found that apples should be stored at a temperature between 0–4 degrees C, 30–39 degrees F, but they should be kept separate from ethylene-sensitive vegetables. If storing together, place apples in a breathable paper bag or a separate drawer to limit ethylene exposure. Also, apples should not be washed before refrigeration, as moisture left on the skin can encourage mold or bacterial growth. Wash them only right before eating. A particularly important point for older adults is apple crispness. For those with dental issues or digestive sensitivities, soft apples may be uncomfortable to eat. Proper storage helps maintain their natural crunch, making them more enjoyable, easier to chew, and easier to digest. In short, apples are a healthy, senior-friendly fruit, but they need proper handling to avoid waste and preserve their quality. Store them in the crisper drawer, keep the temperature stable, don't mix them with delicate vegetables, and consume them within 2–3 weeks of purchase for peak freshness. One tip if apples start to go soft: use them for cooking. Try steamed apples or applesauce. They're still nutritious and easier to eat. Number 3. Onions. Why you should store them in the refrigerator. Onions are one of the most common and indispensable ingredients in the kitchen. Besides adding depth of flavor to dishes, onions also offer health benefits thanks to their high content of natural sulfur compounds and flavonoids like quercetin, known to support heart health, reduce mild inflammation, and strengthen the immune system. However, not everyone realizes that improper storage, especially refrigerating onions, can significantly degrade their quality, shorten their shelf life, and even affect other foods in the fridge. According to recommendations from the USDA and the UC Davis Post-Harvest Center, onions require a dry, well-ventilated environment with stable room temperature. When unpeeled onions are kept in the refrigerator, which has high humidity, they absorb moisture from the environment. This causes the dry outer skin to become damp, soft, and peel off easily, creating favorable conditions for bacteria or mold to grow. Fungal strains such as Aspergillus or botrytis can thrive in cold, humid environments, especially if there's any damage to the onion's outer layers. Additionally, cold and damp conditions can encourage premature sprouting, an unwanted process that depletes the onion's nutrients and alters its flavor, making it overly pungent and less pleasant. It's also important to note that onions belong to a group of foods that emit a moderate amount of ethylene gas, and are sensitive to ethylene from other sources, especially potatoes. Many people habitually store onions and potatoes together, but that's a mistake. When stored close to one another, ethylene gas released by potatoes can cause onions to spoil faster, while moisture from the onions can cause potatoes to sprout or rot more quickly. Both should be stored separately in a cool, dry place with good air circulation. In addition, frequent temperature changes, such as repeatedly moving onions in and out of the refrigerator, can lead to condensation forming under the outer layers. This greatly increases the risk of microbial growth. Once onions become soft, cracked, or emit an odd smell, it's very difficult to restore their original quality, even if they are still technically safe to use. The best way to store onions is in a dry, well-ventilated area away from direct sunlight, such as in a kitchen drawer, a bamboo basket, a mesh bag, or a cardboard box with ventilation holes. The ideal temperature range is between 59-72 degrees F, 15-22 degrees C. Once peeled or cut, the remaining portion should be placed in an airtight container and stored in the refrigerator's cooler section to be used within 2 days. Be sure not to expose the cut onions directly to cold air or place them near raw meat. In short, onions are healthy and nutritious, but improper storage, especially refrigeration, can lead to faster spoilage, nutrient loss, and a higher risk of cross-contamination in the fridge. For older adults in particular, small changes in storage habits can help maintain good health, reduce waste, and ensure food safety in daily meals. Number 2. Garlic. Why you shouldn't store it in the refrigerator. Garlic has long been recognized not only as a staple food ingredient, but also as a medicinal herb with numerous health benefits, especially for older adults. Its organosulfur compounds, particularly allicin, which forms when garlic is crushed or chopped, have antibacterial and anti-inflammatory properties, can help slightly lower blood pressure, and may assist in managing cholesterol levels. However, these benefits can be compromised if garlic is stored improperly, especially in cold environments like the refrigerator. Garlic bulbs thrive best in dry, well-ventilated conditions. According to post-harvest literature from the UC Davis Post-Harvest Technology Center and recommendations from the National Center for Home Food Preservation, whole garlic bulbs, meaning those still wrapped in their dry outer skin, tend to absorb moisture when stored in the fridge. Because refrigerators maintain high humidity to keep produce fresh, garlic skins can draw in moisture from the air. This can lead to the bulbs becoming soft, moldy, or even starting to sprout. While sprouted garlic isn't toxic, it does alter the flavor, usually making it more bitter and pungent, and reduces some of its nutritional value. In cases where garlic has already been physically damaged, for example, cracked or bruised, the combination of moisture and low temperatures can encourage microbial growth, speeding up spoilage. Once garlic starts to feel soft, mushy, or gives off an unusual odor, it becomes nearly impossible to restore its original quality. Using it in raw dishes at that point can negatively affect both the taste and safety of the food. Some people believe refrigerating garlic extends its shelf life. However, research from the University of California, Davis, and the USDA shows that properly stored garlic at room temperature, in a well-ventilated space, and away from direct sunlight, can last between 2 to 4 months while still maintaining its quality. Refrigeration does not significantly extend its usability, and instead often leads to mold or sprouting. Peeled or chopped garlic can be stored in the refrigerator, but only if it's kept in a completely sealed container, such as a glass jar with a tight-fitting lid, at a temperature below 4 degrees C, 39 degrees F, and used within 2-3 days. Beyond that time frame, bacteria like Clostridium botulinum, the source of botulism, can grow in low-oxygen environments, especially if garlic is stored in oil without proper treatment. That's why most home storage guidelines for garlic in oil recommend freezing it or using it within a very short period, and never storing it at room temperature. So the best way to store garlic is to keep it whole and unwashed in a breathable container such as a woven basket, paper bag, or cardboard box in your kitchen, away from direct light and high humidity. If you want convenience, you can prep garlic in advance and freeze it. This helps preserve flavor and reduce bacterial risk. In short, garlic is rich in beneficial plant compounds, but those benefits only hold if it's stored under the right conditions. For older adults, whose digestive and immune systems often need consistent support, garlic is a smart dietary choice, as long as it's kept dry, clean, and free from sprouting in cold environments. Avoiding the fridge for whole garlic is a simple step that helps preserve meal quality and everyday health safety. Number 1. Bread, why you should store it in the fridge. Bread is a familiar, simple food, but it plays an important role in the diet of many older adults. Whether it's sandwich bread, whole grain bread, or sourdough, it provides easily digestible energy, fiber, and certain B vitamins that are essential for seniors, especially those on a bland diet with slow digestion or who need to chew less. However, not everyone knows that keeping bread in the refrigerator doesn't make it stay fresh longer. In fact, it dries out faster and loses both its flavor and texture. According to the Institute of Food Technologists, IFT, and guidelines from the USDA, bread stored in the refrigerator undergoes a process called starch retrogradation, a phenomenon in which the starch molecules in baked bread rearrange their structure when exposed to cold temperatures. This causes the bread to become hard and dry, often in just 1 or 2 days. Many people mistake this as a sign that the bread has gone stale or bad, but in reality, it's simply a natural result of physical changes due to refrigeration. A study from the University of Minnesota found that bread stored at 4 degrees C, the typical refrigerator temperature, dries out 3 times faster than bread kept at room temperature, 22 degrees C, over the same period. In addition, refrigerated bread can easily absorb odors from other foods like cheese, cold cuts, or onions, especially if it's not tightly sealed. This can cause the bread to lose its natural aroma or develop strange flavors when eaten. However, that doesn't mean bread can't be stored for longer periods. If you can't finish it within 2-3 days, freezing is a much better option. At freezing temperatures below 18 degrees C, starch retrogradation is almost completely halted, allowing the bread to retain its structure, moisture, and flavor much better when thawed properly. In particular, according to recommendations from the National Center for Home Food Preservation, you should slice the bread before freezing. This way, you can take out just the amount you need and toast it directly without defrosting the whole loaf. Another important factor is safety. Commercially made bread usually contains preservatives to prevent mold for several days, but homemade or preservative-free bread will spoil more quickly, especially in hot and humid climates. However, storing it in the fridge won't prevent mold if the bread isn't well wrapped. That's because moisture inside the refrigerator can condense inside the bag, creating the perfect environment for microbial growth, even at low temperatures. If you see white or green spots on the surface, no matter how small, you should throw out the entire loaf, since mold may have spread deep inside where it's not visible to the naked eye. In short, bread is a nutritious and essential food if stored and used correctly. You shouldn't keep bread in the refrigerator if you want to maintain its softness, moisture, and natural flavor. Instead, store it at room temperature if you'll eat it within a few days, or freeze it for longer use. For older adults, who often eat less but need high-quality food, changing something as small as how you store bread can make meals more pleasant, help avoid waste, and preserve the nutritional value of this staple food. We've just gone over 6 more everyday foods, from avocados, bananas, apples to bread, that many people are still unknowingly storing in the refrigerator, thinking it's safer and helps extend their shelf life. But as you've just seen, that's not always the case. For older adults, small changes in how food is stored can make a big difference. For example, putting avocados in the fridge before they're ripe not only ruins the flavor but also damages the fruit's tissue, reducing its nutritional value. Green bananas have their ripening process disrupted, while apples, if not stored separately, can actually speed up the spoilage of other foods. Garlic tends to sprout when refrigerated, and bread quickly becomes dry and hard, even though it hasn't technically gone bad. These may seem like minor changes, but repeated over time, they can affect how appetizing food tastes, how well it's digested, and how much nutrition your body actually absorbs each day. The good news is, making the right adjustments isn't complicated. There's no need to overhaul your entire diet. Just knowing which foods do well in cold environments and which should stay at room temperature is already a big step toward preserving nutrition and food safety, especially as we age. At the Elderly Way, we believe that living well doesn't come from grand gestures, but from small, smart choices repeated daily. The way you organize your kitchen shelves, how you store your fruit, or keeping a loaf of bread tasting fresh. These are all meaningful acts of proactive health care that deserve recognition and respect. If you found this video helpful, please hit like, subscribe to The Elderly Way, and share it with your loved ones. In the comments below, we'd love to hear from you. Out of the 12 foods we've covered, are there any you've been storing the wrong way? Have you ever noticed something off about a food after it's been in the fridge? We read and respond to every comment with care and appreciation. And don't forget, in our upcoming videos, we'll continue sharing practical health knowledge, from nutrition to movement, from memory to sleep, all carefully selected for middle-aged and older adults. See you next time on The Elderly Way, where every healthy day is a day lived on purpose.